My name is Nora. For 6 years, I took care of Mrs. Eleanor Grant. I was her home health aide. I found the job online after I dropped out of community college. I needed the money. I didn't expect it to become my whole world. Mrs. Grant's house was a big, old, quiet place on the edge of town. She was 78 when I met her. She wasn't sick, just faded, like a photograph left in the sun. Her husband was gone. Her children lived far away and called only on holidays. Her voice had simply retreated, they said. She didn't speak. Not a hello, not a thank you, not a good night. At first, I chattered non-stop to fill the silence. I talked about the weather, my terrible apartment, the silly news. Nothing. Just blue eyes watching me, cool and distant as lake water. My routine was simple. I arrived at 9, made her oatmeal with a pinch of brown sugar, just the way she silently showed me she liked. I helped her dress. We walked in her overgrown garden. I read newspapers aloud. In the afternoons, she would sit by the bay window, her hands in her lap, staring out at the empty street. I would clean or pretend to clean just to be nearby. Sometimes I felt like a ghost. Was I even there? She never reacted. I told her about my dream of being a graphic designer. I cried once when my boyfriend left, right there in her tidy living room. She didn't pat my shoulder or offer a tissue. She just sat, listening. But in her silence, I started to feel heard. It was the strangest thing. I learned her language. A slight tilt of the head meant yes. A slow blink meant she was tired. If her fingers tightened on the arm of her chair, she was in pain. We built a whole life without words. I knew she loved the red roses by the fence. I knew she hated the sound of the lawnmower. I knew her favorite blanket was the blue one. Her children, Mark and Lisa, sent checks. They visited once a year, for an hour. They talked loudly around her, as if she weren't there. "How's she doing, Nora?" they'd ask me while she sat between us. It made my heart ache. Years passed. I stopped being just her aide. I was the keeper of her silence, the witness to her quiet days. I thought I knew everything about her. I thought the silence held no more secrets. I was wrong. Last Tuesday, she didn't come to the kitchen. I found her in bed, peaceful, her eyes closed. Her heart had stopped in the night. The silence, finally, was complete. I called Mark and Lisa. I called the funeral home. I did everything I always did. I took care of her. The service was set for Saturday. A small thing, they said, just family. I wasn't family. I was the help. But I had to go. I had to say goodbye to the quiet. I put on my one black dress and went to the chapel. I planned to sit in the very back, unseen. But when I walked in, everything changed. The chapel was cold and smelled of old flowers. Only a handful of people were there. Mark, Lisa, their spouses, a few elderly faces I didn't recognize. I slipped into the last pew, my heart a heavy drum in my chest. The minister gave a generic talk about a long life and eternal rest. Mark gave a stiff 2-minute speech about a strong mother. It was like they were talking about a stranger. The woman they described wasn't my Mrs. Grant. My Mrs. Grant loved hummingbirds and hated celery. My Mrs. Grant had a million stories in her eyes. I was fighting tears, feeling angry and alone, when a man stood up. He was older, with kind eyes and a worn jacket. He wasn't on the program. "My name is Arthur," he said, his voice rough. "I knew Eleanor a long time ago." He walked to the front and turned to face us, not to the family, but to me in the back. It felt like he was looking right at me. "You all called her quiet," he began, "but she wasn't always. Oh no, Eleanor had the most beautiful laugh. It was like bells." He told a story then of a young Eleanor, an artist living in New York City. She painted wild, colorful abstracts. She was brave and brilliant and full of fire. She fell in love with a musician, he said. not with Mr. Grant. They were young and poor and happy. She spoke with her hands when she was excited. Her words would trip over each other. She dreamed of having a studio by the sea. I sat frozen. Who was this woman? This silent Mrs. Grant in her flowery armchair? Then Arthur's face grew sad. The fire took it all. The artist's loft she lived in, every single painting, everything she owned, and her voice. My breath caught. She was trapped, Arthur whispered, the chapel hanging on his words. She was rescued, but the smoke, it damaged her vocal cords. The doctors said it was physical, but we knew. The trauma stole her words. The fire stole her art, and then it stole her voice. She never painted again. She never really spoke again. She married later, had a family, but the bright part of her was locked away. He looked at Mark and Lisa. She loved you, you know, but she was a ghost of who she was. Then his eyes found mine again. But these last years, she wrote to me, letters. She found a way to speak, on paper. Tears were streaming down my face now. The quiet I had lived with for years was suddenly a roaring, tragic thing. Arthur held up a small, familiar-looking notebook. My heart stopped. I'd seen it on her bedside table. I thought it was empty. In her last letter, Arthur said, his voice breaking, she wrote, "A young woman named Nora takes care of me. She is kind. She fills the rooms with sound so I don't have to. She is the daughter of my heart. She has given me a voice by listening to my silence." The world tilted. The family turned to stare at me. I couldn't breathe. Arthur finished. "She asked me to speak today, and she asked me, when she was gone, to give Nora the key." After the final prayer, people moved in a slow, hushed wave. Mark and Lisa came towards me, their expressions a mix of confusion and a new, awkward respect. They thanked me stiffly, their eyes avoiding mine. I just nodded, unable to form words. The daughter of my heart rang in my ears, making their formal "thank you for your service" sound hollow. Arthur waited until they left, then approached. He held out a small brass key, worn smooth with age. "She wanted you to have this," he said. His eyes were warm. "She described you perfectly, the girl with the sunflower yellow hair who talks to the roses for her." A sob escaped my throat. I did talk to the roses. I told them to bloom brighter for her. "What does it open?" I managed to ask. "A safe deposit box, at First National downtown. I'll take you if you like. She prepaid the fees for years." Numb, I let him guide me to his old sedan. The town passed by in a blur. We didn't talk. The weight of Mrs. Grant's secret history filled the car. At the bank, it was a solemn, quiet process. The manager, knowing about the funeral, gave me a sympathetic nod. We were led into a cold, private room. Arthur placed the key on the table between us. "This is for you alone, Nora," he said softly. "I'll wait outside." The door clicked shut. The silence in the room was different now. It wasn't empty. It was charged, waiting. My hands shook as I fitted the key into the box marked 712. It turned with a soft, heavy clunk. Inside, there was no jewelry, no stacks of cash, just two things. First, a thick bundle of letters tied with a blue ribbon. The top one was addressed to Arthur in an elegant, looping script I'd never seen. This was her voice, her real voice, on paper. My tears splashed onto the brittle paper. Beneath the letters was a flat rectangular package wrapped in brown paper. With trembling fingers, I undid the string. It was a painting. Not a sad, quiet picture. It was a burst of color, swirls of deep blue and fiery orange, strokes of gold and emerald green. It was chaotic and beautiful and full of raw, screaming emotion. It was the opposite of silent. In the bottom corner, in faint script, "Phoenix Rising, Eleanor, 1965. This was her. This was the woman Arthur described, the woman before the fire, the woman whose voice was stolen. And tucked into the frame's edge, a folded note on familiar stationery. My dear Nora, if you are reading this, you have heard my story. The painting is my past. The letters are my voice. They are yours now. You cared for my silent shell. You were kind to a ghost. You deserve to meet the woman I was, and you deserve to find the woman you will be. Don't be silent. Don't let your fire go out. Paint, speak, live loudly. With all my love, Eleanor. I hugged the painting to my chest, the colors staining my black dress. I cried for the vibrant young artist. I cried for the silent old woman. I cried for the years of quiet